photosynthesis does.
Mm-hmm.
So, and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is what fuels them. That's what they use to, to bind up the minerals that they need and to create the minerals they need. Thus, unless the orbit of the star system, the Milky Way, is stopped, nothing can stop what is coming, the Great Reawakening. Nothing can stop it. So this is a black hole, and you can see with the sun inside it, with the huge thousands of miles long vortex of energy coming out. And so normally those go out like this. But in the case of the Milky Way, because you have Sagittarius over here, and you have what's known as Andromeda over here, and then you have globular clusters here, gravity is a push. So it creates a lensing effect or a pushing effect on the energy coming out of that central sun. So instead of going out three-dimensionally in every direction, it goes out as it only gets out to what for our system would be a 3-day pass through. But of course, it's not like it cuts off right here. So as we're getting close, the infrared energy in our sun is going up, thus heating up all our systems on Earth. So we're heading to a solar maximum. They keep saying solar minimum. We're heading towards a solar maximum. And so once you go through this, then what happens is what is called rapture, or a jump to density, because your sun's corona will collapse to its core. Once it's in, it's a suppression field. So it collapses the corona to the core. And as that energy starts to vibrate harder and harder, it jumps octaves. In other words, third, fourth, fifth. And then the sun, as it goes out, it looks like it goes out. And so this energy hitting the Earth's atmosphere causes the Earth's atmosphere to ionize in the infrared spectrum, which causes what at the equator, when you have like ships crossing the equator, they have to lower their mast and antenna on submarines, because if you're on the surface, because you get ball lightning forming around because of the ionization for coming of the energy fields that I mentioned earlier coming out of the equator.
Yes.
And so it's a vortex, creates little mini vortexes, which are ball lightning, because you have north polarities and south polarities coming out, and the north pole to the south and the south polarities pole to north coming out from the central sun through the energy fields. Mm-hmm. And so you have to lower so what happens now with this is seen almost fire worldwide, and the sky turns black, and you have fire falling from the sky until the Earth's atmosphere is infrared, in the infrared spectrum. Once it's in the infrared spectrum, it acts like a lens on a camera and turns this energy into visible red light. So the sun, with this energy bouncing off it, and our moon with this energy bouncing off it, the sun and the moon look blood red. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
3 days of darkness, the sun and the moon, the fire falls from the sky, and then the sun and the moon turn blood red, but you can't see the stars because they're not mostly infrared. And so over the vast distances, that doesn't travel so well. You have to have collectors out in space to see that. And so every 125 million years, we pass through this belt and we jump densities, because what happens when you come out? The sun's energy bursts out of the core, but now it's jumped to fifth density. So anybody on Earth that can go to fifth density or fourth density, you can be at fourth. You will be moved to that other Earth because you go where you resonate. That Earth is already at fifth density. That median and aurora Earth are fourth and fifth density. And so, and there's already a fifth density sun that we on this Earth, some people don't see it. I do. I've shown pictures of it where I showed in Bali in a volcano we climbed, where I had the fifth density sun, which is white, and the third density sun, which is yellow, like most people see.
Yeah.
So the Anunnaki have vast knowledge of the Milky Way as the servants of the war weapon of the Draco, and have gone into stasis chambers on Earth to reemerge during that shift, the fourth and fifth density. They'll stay on this Earth because they're negative. This Earth will become completely negative individuals, service to self types. That passage to the Photon Belt causes that. So the Anunnaki red-haired giants in stasis, if you go to these YouTube links, they'll show you them. Mm-hmm. Let's see if I can pull it up here. It's probably going to cause me not to be able to share. Yeah. Let's see if it pulled up. Let me stop sharing and see if it pulled it up on my. No,
On your screen.
Yeah, that one's no longer available. They
Whoa.
don't want you to see that. Oh, that's interesting. Why not? You don't want us to see that, huh? Okay, let me get my document back up here. Oh my goodness, Mike. Sorry for the delay here.
And in the meantime, Gene,
Yes,
we
sir.
we all remembered the whole, global warming thing.
Yep.
And it's been like 10 years, right? If they've
Yeah.
been pushing that's so it's all linked with what you're showing now. The I'm gonna say it photon belt or the ring.
Yeah.
So
So this
would
is
yeah.
an op they did in Iran. Yeah, it's linked to the photon belt. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an Anunnaki that they, you can see, you don't see his thumb. You notice that?
Mm-hmm.
Look at how many digits. He's got six, not five.
Mm-hmm.
One, two, three, four, five, six. Okay. It's not just a red haired giant. They have six digits, not five. So this guy they had to kill at an Anop in Iran. So a red haired giant that was killing and eating people that was wakened up from one of the caves um, that they had. So let me.
And all of this was this related to the whole, military ops that they've been pushing as,
Mm-hmm.
war and terror whatsoever. But
Yes.
yeah,
Let me see if I can pull up this other link. Oh, that's the same one. Okay. Let me.
sounds good.
Yep. And I got one more link here. Um, I forgot. Bonus. Okay. Yeah. So that one pulled up. That's good. So these are in the stasis chambers you can see here. And Lincoln actually, they have one they found in a cave in Illinois that they took Lincoln and showed.
In Illinois, June.
Yep. There's also some in Canada and in the Great Lakes area, the Native Americans in both Canada and what was US Canada now, and the US almost eradicated them because they were taking children, killing them, and eating them.
Hmm.
So here they are in the stasis chamber, these Anunnaki kings. This guy looks like he died. Looks like a
Hmm.
mummy. And there's a video here. Let's see if this is the one I had that they deleted. Oh, it's age restricted now. That's why. They show some of the artifacts with him.
Yeah.
They're showing a newspaper so you can actually get the date of when this is, when they found this.
And these footage actually, in Iran.
They're in Iran, this one.
Okay. Okay.
They're also found them all over the world.
Okay.
So there's ones, like I said, in Illinois. There's some in the New Brunswick area in caves and mines.
Interesting. Illinois, Gene. Would you have the information?
Yeah,
Mostly,
do you know of the mound builder civilization?
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, those aren't mounds. Those are pyramids, buried pyramids. There's pyramids under that dirt. And they literally in St. Louis and many other places along the Missouri River
Mm-hmm.
destroyed. When they built St. Louis, they built Chicago. They destroyed pyramids looking exactly like Teotihuacan.
Mm-hmm.
The Native American populations of this continent were vastly advanced,
Yep.
and, but peaceful and way beyond what they're telling us. I think you had a lady on your show who went into that, Michelle Gibson, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
And she talks about, yeah, actually the mound builders. So
yep. And
Yep.
those go all across Chicago area. They destroyed them to put in Chicago. They're all through Illinois. They're up along the Missouri River,
Mm-hmm.
which represents to the elite the Nile. That's why you have the same cities. You have Alexandria. You have all the same cities along the Nile and the Missouri River. They named them the
Mm-hmm.
same. And then you have, even in the Grand Canyon, she didn't go into this. If you look, they have the names of the various peaks you're seeing as things in Egypt, because there's actually, those are old, ancient, I mean, literally millions of years old pyramids. And there's a guy in the Arizona Gazette, you look for 1917, you'll see articles. There's 2 articles of a guy who found the pyramid in the Grand Canyon and pulled out all kinds of artifacts. And they showed a picture of a Buddha, kind of Egyptian-like Buddha, that was 120 feet high, solid gold statue.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what they're showing, sorry, I missed, you get to see the guy right there. And there's a sword with the stones on it, and the writing.
So then again, Gene, I'm just gonna share it. So in Iran, en français, en Iran, in espagnol, Iran. So these are, some of the stuff that's been people have been disclosure stuff. This is actually footage that Gene is actually sharing. So
Yeah.
all of this,
Mainly what I
Iran.
am is a researcher, and I dig up stuff and I find it. And then, I do have a few people, since I did my second dumb decode, that have contacted me, and little by little got some people that are telling me things that are military sources.
Mm-hmm.
And I had people when I first awakened that were CIA and that type of thing.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting, Gene. And I know you probably have more from your document, but if you
Yeah,
don't mind, we'll reserve this for another session.
sure. We can go over that next time then.
Sure. So I know Gene, time is running now. Running now. How much time would you still have, Gene?
If you give me like 1 minute to do my protocol here,
Okay, sounds
I
good.
could go another 30 minutes if you want.
Sounds good. So I'll put pause, Gene, and I'll resume when you'll get back.
Okay, give me 1 minute.
Sounds good.
There's another doc. There's another document I wanted to share with you that a lady named Mary sent me.
Sure.
That if people want this, they can contact me through the email, and the coordinators will send it to them. Just make sure in the subject line you put your location. Like if you're in Ontario, for example, you'd put CA in caps \ON for Ontario, or whatever the 2-letter designator for your province. If in the US, the US \2-letter designate for the state, or if you're in a foreign country, put the foreign country in caps, and then just put what you want. So this document is amazing that she put together. It's called Be Your Own Advocate.
Be your own advocate. All right.
Yeah. The United States was a corporation, the second
Mm-hmm.
Declaration of Independence. Do your research, Nasara and Jasara. So this goes into her journey, talks about Mockingbird Media and the Hollywood stars and the Project Mockingbird and the brainwashing psyop that is. And it talks about the US history and goes through, from the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, that impoverished the US government so that Ulysses S. Grant became president. And then the US obtained a loan from the City of London. And then here is the betrayal. This is S. Grant, traitor. Incorporation of the US by a legislative act of Congress known as the Organic Act of 1871, turning the US into changing the Constitution out, actually. They got rid of the Constitution of these United States for these United States for America, but the United States, all in caps, corporate entity
Mm-hmm.
of America. United States of America. So totally different constitution. Now, the founding fathers saw this coming. They were very foresightful, literally prophetic. And so they squirreled away a second original. They made 2 originals. So when they burned in the War of 1812, the DC they had another one somewhere else. So they thought they destroyed the original, and they made a copy and two copies, an original copy, which they then destroyed in 1871 and put the fake one in. So then you have, various other sundry things happening, and you can go through the history here. The U.S. corporation, the Constitution of the United States, the government under the U.S. corporation. More important years, foreign investors coming in the 1900s, using the gold that they had taken from getting rid of the czar and inflating the market up and down, causing the people, they put in news articles that not to have a central bank. The bankers did. Reverse psychology. So the people thought that's what we need. The bankers don't want it, that's what we need. So late at night in 1913, out on Jekyll Island, in 1910, I believe is when they wrote it up. And Jekyll Island is actually where the bloodline of Cain, known as the Dan, were that part of the big, tall, red-haired individuals that sacrificed children to Moloch. The sacrifice stone is underneath the table where they wrote the Federal Reserve Act.
Right.
And so that was actually a hunting lodge, by the way, too, just like the natives there did. They're actually the Dan, and they weren't native. They had a double curved bow, which is not what Native Americans had. That is seen in the Middle East. If you go there on, I think We Are the News is the channel. She does an amazing video that she found on the creation of the Federal Reserve. So then Woodrow Wilson, is president. He starts bringing all these foreign investors in. We get the supposed ratification of the 17th Amendment. They said it appeared to be ratified. It wasn't really ratified. Sorry about that jumping around here. Let me page down one at a time so we don't jump. Over the next years, they completely loot the gold out. If you read the testimony of Senator Lewis T. McFadden on the floor of Congress in the 30s, he shows shipping documents of $100 million a day in gold bullion going to the blue chip stockholders of the Federal Reserve, which is the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds are 52%, and then the other 48 is halfway Rockefeller, which are their cousins, and the Carnegies are the other 24. And so to Geneva, the gold from the Fort Knox and all the other gold reserves. It was completely raided in the 1920s. They raided the Federal Reserve, raided the US Treasury completely, all the gold and then all the silver. And so then what became because what they're doing is they're creating notes, paper, demanding and loaning them to the government, demanding payment in gold for paper. Yep. And so by a very short time, the US went bankrupt. It had no more gold. So then what did they use? Us. Our income tax was passed, and that tax goes straight to pay some of the usury, not any of the principal, because the usury, a T-bill is a promissory note of the Treasury to the Federal Reserve. And what it says is we'll pay you in gold when we can. We can't right now. So it's 10.5% compounded annually, paid off every 5 years. So if you're not paid off, then you have to redo the loan. That's why periodically there's a disagreement and the US shuts down, nobody gets paid that's a federal employee. Mm-hmm. So in 1933, after the stock market crash, what they did is they caused the market to go up and down radically on one day. So they had what they created called marginal stock, which was backed 100-to-1 on a regular stock, which was completely borrowed on your regular stock. Well, the common stock market that was created in 1929 after the fall of the stock market was for the common people. The original blue chip stock is only traded by the big corporations and the elites. So and that's backed 100-to-1 on the blue chip stock. So they slowly supplanted our original stock market. And so we don't really have real stock. We're playing Monopoly. It's fake. It's all fake. So then a state of emergency was claimed in 1933 and the U.S. corporation surrendered whatever gold of the people was demanded to be turned in by the president at that time. So now the dollar has no backing. So the World International Bank and the International Monetary Fund were formed at that time. And then this gave them enormous power. And then anonymous foreign investors and owners came in and bought up and created the United Nations and bought up the U.S. corporation. So, and then it goes into FEMA and the 10 regions, which is what they want to do, is divide the U.S. up into 10 regions, as prophesized, the 10 heads. And then going into the original flag as compared to the current flag with the original flag without the gold ruffle, which is Admiralty law.
Yep, you're right.
And to admire means to be, mire is mud. It means you're added to the mud. All of us are added to the mud by the elite. We're concerned the mud of the earth. And so we're just a commodity under the USDA. Our birth certificates are traded on the stock market. If you take your social security number, and I know in Canada, if you look at your birth certificate, you can actually see for the last 20 years, there's a bank on it that is the bank that owns you and trades you. You're traded in blocks. So like in the US, your first 3 digits is the region. Your middle 2 digits are the specific bank in that region. Your last 4 digits are the block number of your block, your trading block of the people that were born at the time and place and region you were in that are being traded on the stock market. And you can put that in. There's apps that I've been given that you can put that in and see how much you're worth. I'm worth about $150 million.
Which website, Gene, would you suggest?
I'd have to pull that up and look at it. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah. So the U.S. was created as a constitutional republic. Pledge allegiance to the flag to the republic for which it stands. It's not a democracy. That's a priest rule. Democracy means mob rule of false priesthood of Satan.
Gene.
Yes, sir.
It amazed me, but knowing the knowing the design behind the scene, but it's surprising me because Article 4, Section 4, that's what it says. Any form of government must be a republic form. But I'm amazed how many individuals does not even know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazed me how little people are being taught about anything. They don't know the Constitution. For example, Article 1, Section 8 says all money shall be coined.
Right.
By the U.S. Treasury. Look at your dollar bill. What's it say? U.S. Federal Reserve, no, Bank of New York. Where are the Treasury mints that coin? Denver, Philadelphia, San Francisco, not New York. They even showed you what they're going to do with the trade towers in the Bruce Willis movie of Die Hard 2, where they had the trash trucks driving and they blew up the Federal Reserve. What do you think was under Trade Tower 7? Guess what that was? They did that. And there were trash trucks, 14 trash trucks seen going through Manhattan when the dust was going. Yep, they actually did that. They pulled the gold out. They pulled their own gold out and then filed for insurance loss of the building, and it was all gone. So they double dipped. They said the gold was stolen. Yeah, by them, just like over here in the 20s where they stole they shut the banks down, declared a 3-day banker holiday, said there's been a run on the banks. Yeah, by them.
Yeah.
And then everybody tries to get their money out and collapses the economy. That's the same trick they use every time. It's like, yeah, who ran the bank? We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, declare war on terror. Who's the terrorist? They are.
Yeah.
Same thing. Same game every time. Pot calling the kettle black. And, so what's the war on? Us. It's
Yeah.
a war on us. We're now in Agenda 21. That's what the thing in your arm is about. It's to bring down the world population. Do not get that. That literally, if you figure out, and I haven't done this before, and it's not undoable, like coming to the feet of Christ and going to God and service to God, you can undo this. It can always be undone until as long as you're alive. Howsoever, if you calculate the number, if you look at the UPC barcode, what's it based on? What is the beast that runs the economic world community in Brussels based on? Negative parity. What that means is in a standby mode, just conserve energy. And it knows when a binary word is coming, which is 4 digits. To represent base 10 in digital, you have to have 4 digits, because if you only have 3, that's 1, 2, and 4, which adds up to 7. You can't get 8 and 9, so you have to have another digit. So you have a word coming, 4 digits, and how do the computers on standby tell, here comes a word? You have what's called negative parity. A single one comes by itself. So the number that has to be at the beginning and the middle and the end of the barcode, why? Because it has to say, here's the first half of the barcode, which is the company, because different companies might make the same product. So you have the company, the manufacturer code, and then the right side is the product. So it has to be separated, the beginning and the end and the middle, with exact same digital number, which the lines represent, the 2 thin lines you see at the beginning, middle, and end, are the number 6. So and why 6? Because if we look at that word digitally, it can't have a 1 on the ends, because that would tell the computer that here comes a word, and you don't want it to think that is in the word. So it has to have zeros on the end. It has to be reflexive, which means if you divide the number right down the middle, the digits in the center and the digits on the outside are the same. So it's going to end on zeros on both sides, and it's going to it can't be all zeros. That's an off state. So it has to have ones in the middle, 0, 1, 1, 0. That's 6. That's a 2 and a 4. That's 6, 6, 6, 6. And so if you look at people who are getting the stuff put in your arm through a needle, if you get your pet implanted with a microchip, a tracking, an RFID, they have a little scanner, and they can get the barcode number of the RFID scanner. That's based on 666, okay? Just 666 to your dog and your cat or your animal. Well, now that's the barcode. That's what it's based on. Okay. Now, if you get somebody who's gotten that stuff in their arm and you push it over, you get that little scanner, guess what you'll get? You'll get a barcode number. You have a number put on you. And they're already talking in a lot of countries that to go to the store, you have to have gotten that, or you won't be able to travel. You won't be able to buy. You won't be able to sell anything. This is already, this is what they're working for. This is why it's important that Trump comes back and this be undone and this stuff be taken out. There are the protocols that I have will take this out. You can get this out, and you can all the nanodust and the nanotech and the RFIDs in the nanodust and the AI that's in there. That a guy in Russia showed lifetime tracking of his friends that had that put in them, and he could see they were asleep by their brain scan that was on the dark web. He could see their brain scan. He could see they were in REM sleep. He could see their heart rate was low. He could see their brain scans. If you can see the brain scan, that means they're downloading your mind. They're downloading your thoughts. That means they can upload them too. If they can send a signal out, that AI can receive a signal. That's how they talk to you. They're telling you, it's like what the Targeted Individuals program was to study how to do this. So they can put ideas and thoughts and feelings and awarenesses in your head. And, the whole idea was to make all of the human race a MK ultra type individual for them. Unfortunately for them, God turned it around slightly. So it's doing some of what they say, but primarily what it's doing is those that have predominantly over 75% mankind genetics die before they get out the door. If they're more than 52% to 75%, they'll mostly get really, really ill. They might die if they're already in bad health, but it'll clear out the mankind genetics, and then the human genetics will take over, because the standing army for the cabal has to be removed. And they found out through the MK Ultra program and the MyLabs also that humans, people that are 75% human and above, almost always break out of the programming or the mind wipe, the blank slate. They almost always get their memories back. They almost always rebel against their handlers, even when their handlers are still alive. They rebel, like Arizona Wilder, her handler died in that case, which was Mengele. But in what was her name? Fiona Barnett, she actually got rebelled before her handler died. And so they've learned that only mankind can be used, people that are predominantly mankind. So that's these MK Ultra with the end times programming to go get weapons. And I mean, you have one per block for every city on Earth. That is a massive army. You have got to either change that army over to human if they can be, or unfortunately in war, you got to get rid of the standing army some way, just like, God had Moses do, and, Joshua do in Jericho. Who are they getting rid of? The Canaanites, the bloodlines of Cain. So same thing here. We're looking at the same, but it's intermingled, unfortunately. That's why they hid the books of Q, the Quell, to tell us not to keep intermarrying with them, because they can be mind wiped and mind controlled and all this other stuff. That's why it doesn't hold with humanity. And that's why, people like you and I, and the people who are awake, and why there's so many people that you could show this to them day and night do this for 2 months, get them a captive audience somehow and they'll still deny it. You can show them blatantly in their face everything, and why can't you wake them up? Because they're mostly mankind. And humans, why do we care so much what's being done to our children? Why do we care what's being done to all children everywhere? Why does it bother us so bad? And they don't seem to care. A lot of them don't care. A lot of them do it. I mean, I guarantee you, if you're in a major city, on your block, you have somebody who's trafficking their own children.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is. That's the type of beings these are. They could be nice. I know people who I know for sure are mankind. I'm not saying if you nurture them correctly, they can be good, but they can be mind wiped easily. They can be mind controlled easily. They're more about what makes them feel good and what happens for them and theirs than caring about other people, and being kind, considerate, and respectful to others comes first. They don't see in an argument, you can't get them to stop. They won't ever come to the table and say, I'm willing to say I could have been wrong. Anytime you have a disagreement between the two individuals, it's rarely 100% one person's fault. They'll never go there. They'll say, no, it's that other person completely. It's almost never completely. We all make mistakes. And so that's, unfortunate. We're in war, and that's why Trump recommends, the Johnson & Johnson, which is a bit different. But the others, the AstraZeneca, and those are substantially more towards what they want, but they still are eradicating mankind or converting to humanity. The unfortunate other circumstance, which can be redone using things like DMSO, sun gazing, et cetera, the genetic damage, but it will make you sterile too. So, they're heading for Georgia Guidestones. So the people need to wake up and say no more, and to get the world's countries back in the hands of the people of humanity, for those people that care and want a representative government and care about others and considerate and respectful. And then we need to nurture mankind and let this thing, it's been 65% of the American public and most of the big countries on earth. It will go like it did to me. It's clearing out my mankind genetics. That's what it's doing. What I had, it's cleaning it out from what that guy touched me and gave it to me. The shedding will go to every person on earth, unless you're in a cave or in a deep rainforest and you're not within 100 miles of somebody. Even on the trade winds, it'll eventually get into the trade winds. So you will be exposed. So it's very important to get, the things that I said earlier, those protocols will clear it out, along with DMSO and Protocol 1000 Plus. And Jim Humble's book will give the DMSO and my sun gazing techniques that God showed me how to pull your genetics back up and re-energize all of your energy structures throughout your little computers. You have 7 computers. They're called chakras. Not in the Bible, by the way. Not in the Bible. Doesn't say anything about that in the Bible. We are created like God created us in his own image. 7 days of creation, 7 chakras in our body. 3 circulatory systems. You have your cardiovascular, lymphatic, and you have your acupuncture meridians, which are the 3rd circulatory system. They're fiber optics that run through your body that transmit and receive ultraviolet light. And that's what the chakras are, little balls of fiber optics, just like a computer terminal. And that's what it is. And it controls the organs in those locations, balancing all of those out, getting all of your telomeres turned back on, pulling up your genetics back all the way up to 64 strands can be done. And so through the sun gazing and through the Protocol 1000 Plus and these other things. So anybody that wants that information or this document, here's the 2nd Declaration of Independence. And I actually had a person that helped draft this email me when I showed this on Kirsten W. show. And said that she actually helped draft this document. The Alliance came to her and a bunch of other people in secret, and they drafted this, and then Trump signed this on 2nd of July in 2019. The 4th of July is not actually the true date. That's a satanic holiday. The true date of the US is the 2nd. They moved it out to put it on a satanic holiday. So there's 56 signatories in this task force of these individuals that created this. So, and then this document goes through the Nasara Jasara and the Global Economic Act, and the indictment of Bush before his death has that in there.
Yep.
So it's got a lot of really good. Then it goes into Anton LaVey and his connection with the Bushes and all the things he's done and all kinds. I mean, it's I'll page through this so people can see. Goes through all your presidents. And I didn't even know some of this. It's really interesting. We've had it sometimes 2 vice presidents, which I never knew. I didn't know that. I'm like, okay, I'm not as good as a history as I thought. So in the original Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, most people don't know all the Bill of Rights. And those are rights. They're not privileges. The difference is we are endowed by certain unalienable because they're given to us by God, rights. Yep. We are not, they say we have a soul. We don't have a soul. We are a soul. That's who you really are. That's the core. You're a soul inside of a mental body, inside a causal body, inside an astral body, inside a physical body. Like Shrek, I'm complicated. I have layers. You do. Indeed, you do. And so who you really are is your soul. You give that away, you physically die, you're done. That's it. So that is the eternal self. The corporeal self is just a passing thing. You give that away for one life, you got to be definitely something wrong in your head. And you're not all there, that's for sure. So going in, I'll just page through this. And the executive orders that are so important that Trump signed, all the central banks, you can see here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep. Canada, Bank of Canada.
Oh, yeah. I've been checking this. You have it like in IT. You have it in the Dominican Republic. I mean, everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere. East Caribbean area.
Yeah.
Even little tiny places. Gambia. I mean, wow. Qatar.
And and not owned by the sincere and honest people. So
Not owned by the people. They're owned by
yeah.
the Rothschild family, not owned by them, but actually by the Paysure. Now they're owned by the Rothschild.
Hmm.
There's no more Paysure left on Earth. It goes into and that 19 situation and all of that. So pretty good document.
And then again, on the if you go back again, Gene. So then again, you have either the cloning or the double agent. Before this,
Yeah.
before this, the previous page.
Oh,
Yeah,
this guy. Who's
there you go.
this?
There you go.
Who is this guy? Who is this? Before, after?
So definitely, not the same individual right
Yeah.
here.
Look at the length of the forehead,
Yeah.
the nose structure, the ears, the jawline, the length of the jawline, dimple, no dimple.
Yeah.
That's a genetic trait, by the way. Maybe when they cloned it, that trait didn't copy, huh?
Yeah.
Just
So
saying, where's the dimple go? Kind of odd. The eye set, the distance between the eyes. This thing looks really confused
yeah.
most of the time.
And you talk about that,
Yeah,
probably
not
since
only
last
that,
year. Since last year.
but this thing was taken over by a vril that died. And so now what's in here is a low-level Alpha Draco shapeshifter that can go interdimensional and go inside here. Robin Bullock, I think it's June 22nd, took a picture. He showed it on his screen about halfway through his prophecy. And this eye had a slit. It had that typical reptilian slitted eye. Robin calls it the serpent eye, or the spirit of the serpent.
It shift. And I remember too, couple years, probably 2 years or last year, I can't remember. He was doing actually on a TV show, and his left eye suddenly changed.
Yep.
It
There's
went
times you can see Nancy, her eyes turn completely black. Not just the pupil and the iris, the entire eye. And another tip I'll give with people with eyes is what's called sampaku eye. The Japanese call it. It's called the four whites. It's a sign of a psychopath and a sociopath. So when you look at the eye, normally you see white on each side of the colored portion of the eye and not underneath. Here you're starting to see underneath. That's a sociopath. When you see white all the way around the eye, like you do with Adam Schiff, that's a psychopath. That's somebody who has no more soul. The soul is gone. Soul's dwindling when you can go around three sides, or sometimes go over and you can, one side doesn't, but it's called the four whites in Paduka eye. Yep. It's a good technique to know who you're dealing with. In Japan, if you have some paku eyes, oh, thanks, but I don't think I'm going to do business with you. It's okay. Never mind. I don't think I can trust you, even when you sign on a piece of paper with a witness. You would be stab me in the back first chance.
Indeed. And shout out to the lady that made the document. It reminds a lot of the things. It reminds me of indigenous people that refer to themselves as Moors, like myself. We've been actually talking about those civics, jurisprudence, key information.
The only thing I disagree with what Michelle said is this timeline. That timeline was spliced into this timeline. It was truncated into this timeline. That timeline threatened all the timelines because human and the Moors, which were a kind priesthood and kingship, were developing throughout Tartaria and a lot of other places all over the world, advanced anti-gravity and free energy, and going into the stars, starting to colonize this solar system and slightly outside the solar system. And so it was a big threat to the Draco. So they crashed meteors and comets again, like they always do, and it caused a mud flood, and it truncated and in that whole timeline actually, and they, using technology, bind it to this one. So for that timeline, they have 200-year 18th century. For this timeline, for me, I know for a fact that my 18th century, because I have letters going back all the way to the Revolutionary War. My mother talked to my great grandmother, and like my mother always told me about living through the Depression, and her grandmother talked about going through the Civil War. So if there had been that event on this timeline, you'd have, even if they wiped it out of all the papers and everything, you'd have people talking about it, or you'd have letters about it. I have letters going all the way back, that because I'm the last male heir in my family on both sides. And so I have letters going back. I actually have my family crest back to the year 367. So, I know my history on both sides way, 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 way back. And there's nothing about that. I have letters about between husband and wife in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, newspaper clippings of, of heroship, of like great grandfather of mine took in World War I, took out a German machine gun nest by himself. And so I have all this stuff, but I don't have anything like that. But for those, and there are some buildings and structures that came here from that timeline that are buried first and second stories. I've actually been into some of those where there's a buried story or two. And so that timeline was truncated in. And so the Moors and all of that. But what they're not telling you is like Hammurabi was a Moor, the first legal code of Hammurabi, to try to get Babylon into some kind of system of not sacrificing kids to Baal. The Moors invented, even on this timeline, archaeology, mathematics, the idea of zero. What they're giving false credit to people, like they did where they said that Edison, and other people discovered this and that. Tesla discovered radio. He did pretty much everything. Same thing with the Moors. They're the one that developed the idea of zero, developed the mathematics we have today, did a lot of the mapping of the world that we have, showing maps of Antarctica with no ice, as composed of two remnants of two continents, Lemuria and Atlantis, with 4 rivers coming out from the central earth of fresh water. The internal earth has fresh seas, and they pour out over those 2 continents. All of this was mapped long ago by the Moors. On this timeline, it comes from what is known as Hyperborea. That was the Moorish civilization here, which was up in the Norway area, an entire continent that sat up there. It's what the remnants of Iceland and Greenland are, which again, they flipped on you. Iceland is icy, and it is green, but they say it's icy. And Greenland, they're saying is green, but it's covered with ice. And so that used to be, when the world was tropical, Hyperborea. And that was where the Moorish kings were starting to advance this world too. And so they destroyed them here as well. And then by doing that, they were able to truncate in that other timeline. So the Moors are significantly responsible. They changed their ways from Polaria. Polaria were the Varkas kings, which were horrific and enslaved the world. But they found God in Christ, and so they changed their ways and became very peaceful and very advanced very quickly. Once you get out of that destructive mode, you advanced way quick, because you have the hand of God on you. And when you respect God, then God will advance you very quickly. Unlike the dark side, where you have to work for everything. It's a handout from God, where if you're in service to God, He gives you what you need all the time. If you trust in God, it always comes. And so the Moorish kings learned that. And so they actually created the Hyperborean continent from Polaria. And so that then, when the Earth had the Atlantean Lemurian War, went inside the Earth, as the Earth expanded from 48% of what it was today to what the size it is today in 40 days. Atlantis shot a beam from the moon to Lemuria's capital, Thule, which was near Guam, where Guam is, and burned to the mantle of the earth. And so the fresh salt, fresh seas, which were along S-like rivulets, like if you spin a ball and you drop water, make an S, make one arc on the top to your left, and it'll make an arc to your right on the bottom. So you had those seas where the continents, the continent, one solid plate of the whole earth, had freshwater seas dividing it, and there the rain was eroding the igneous and metamorphic rock down into the bottom of these seas, creating sandstone, which is weak. And the water created a pressure, so it was eroding underneath. It would eventually happen, but not like catastrophically like it did. So when the Lemurians burned Thule to the bottom through to the mantle, the crack went around the earth at 8 miles a second. And at that time, the water, there was 100-mile thick area of water underneath the earth's crust. And the air was super saturated because it had cooled, and it had been raining. And so as it cooled, you get what's called a supersaturated solution. Like if you take a glass of water and put salt in till you can't put any more in as you're stirring it, if you raise it 10 degrees, you can put a bunch more salt in and let it cool down by itself. It'll stay in solution. You have more salt in there than it could have at the room temperature. It's called supersaturation. But if you create a cascade event where if you were to tap the side of the glass, you'll see crystals forming on the side of the glass, or drop a little bit of salt in it, it'll suddenly start to crystallize on the solids. You can see it cascade out. And so when the earth got ripped there, water shot up 100 miles. And 100 miles up, there was what's called the firmament at that time, which went around the entire earth. And it was a thick layer of dense water that kept the radiation of the sun, the cosmic rays, from coming in. So that's why they had to create the photon belt, the Van Allen belts, to protect it after that. And so those were a creation to protect the earth. But before that, you had that thick water firmament. And so when that water hit, it created a cascade event where it rained for 40 days. This was the first one, this is a different way. And the continents, literally because of the spinning of the earth, that crack went around on under those oceans, those seas, freshwater seas, and the continents became what they are today, and moved to where they are within 40 feet in 40 days. So if you look, they tell you the continents were one continent. Yeah, the whole surface of the earth, not Pangea with water all around it, water on top of it, because there's no subduction zones at all. If there were, where the plates are going under, the other one, it would be like push your hand, one hand over the back of your other hand. You'll see it pile up skin. You would have massive mountain ranges on subduction zones on the other continental plate. You don't. And so, if you look at Thomas Maxlow and several other people's work on this, they've shown this. And if you take core samples, there's a Norwegian person, I did a study on this. I can do this document later on another show if you want, on this continental drift, and how it's not continental drift, it's continental flying around. It's like flying through the ocean. And so the cores of the Earth's floor, ocean's floors, none of them anywhere are over 160 million years old. It's all volcanic. It's all, there's no sandstone down there. And it's all 160 million years old and less. That means the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, all of them. Those oceans weren't there 167.5 million years ago. They weren't there. It was one solid piece. That's why it's obvious, because Atlantic is small, that you can see the tuck in of Africa in Europe into the Americas. But you don't see it because the Pacific Ocean is almost as big as half the surface of the earth. So when you see it, you don't see that the west coast of the Americas tucks into Asia. If you bring up Antarctica, half of it, and the other half goes up into the hole in the Atlantic, which was Atlantis. And the other part, Lemuria, goes up with Antarctica, Australia, and it tucks perfectly up into the Pacific basin and touches and fits just perfectly so that it fills the hole where North America and South America tuck up into Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the west coast of the US, now pan all the way over to Asia, drag it to there you go. See how big the Pacific Ocean, this isn't obvious.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
half the globe. Keep pulling.
There you go.
See that arc?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, there's Australia. But if you go up and you see where the clouds are up there, you can see how that bulges out. South America bulges out. It tucks into that open area in the South China Sea.
Yeah.
It fits perfectly. So if you get a true projection, a Peters projection map, get a couple. Get one to keep and one to cut up, and cut all the continents out. And you'll find out you can create a perfect fit, a little tiny globe, 48% the size of what we have now, with holes at the poles. Perfectly. In Antarctica and Australia, cut it, get a Perry Reese map and cut it where you see it, where it didn't have ice, and take the one half, the eastern half that goes in the Atlantic, that's Atlantis, and the western half, that's Lemuria, that goes up near Guam in that area. Yep. And it'll perfectly all fit together. And so it all slid to where it is today in 40 days, within 40 feet. We've only had 40 more feet of movement in 167,500,000 years. That's what made the dinosaurs go extinct. The War of Gilgamesh, not a huge meteor crashing into the Gulf. That's a planetary extinction event. There would be no bacteria left on Earth if you did that. Something that huge. I mean, come on. Watch the movie Armageddon. You're going to wipe out all life on Earth. It's like, no. So just, it's for another show, but, some very interesting information.
Sure, Gene, because I appreciate the fact that you touch on the Moors, not the popular story, but, the occult one. And I'm going to say it, because that's what I've been putting forward because of my recalls.
Yeah.
For me, it was all part of Galactic intervention.
Yep. And that's another reason in the Temple of Seti II in Egypt, they show you the Egyptian dynasties that they say are the Egyptian dynasties, accepted by the Egyptian authorities of archaeology, of Egyptology, only the right wall. They only show you the right wall. They don't show you the list on the left wall. Goes all the way back to Osiris. And that's when they started trying to infiltrate the Moors that were running Egypt. If you look at the aristocracy of Egypt, like Akhenaten and all of that, they're not black. They're white. They're wearing wigs. They're tall, big hips, narrow shoulders, narrow waist. What is that? Not terrestrial, I'll tell you that. You have an infiltration done. That happened, and that's why they don't go into that left wall, because you're talking the Moorish were ruling Egypt at that time, and they were being infiltrated slowly by the Assyrian invasion from Osiris, or the Anunnaki and the Alpha Draco and the other non-terrestrial negative groups. They were slowly being infiltrated and replaced, and that's why they don't go into hundreds of thousands of years of pharaohs. Hundreds of thousands. The original pyramids were built by the Moors before they blew them up and had to rebuild them.
Yeah, and you know what, Gene? Because now I'm gonna bring up, Lyra, Vega. I'm gonna bring up Morse. So you know what, Gene? We're gonna that's gonna be a trailer teaser for the next show. All right, if you don't mind.
And guess what the white humanity race is? Bet you never even considered this one. We are black. We're called albinos. we're less or more albino. If you're really blonde and might even have pink hair, I mean, pink eyes. That's
Mm-hmm.
called albinoism. It's been selectively bred because humanity is looking at the elites and saying, we want to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in normal mammalian species, it runs 3 to 5%. In the human race, it runs higher because it's been selectively picked. It's just albinoism. That's all it is. And it changes your facial structure. If you prioritarily breed albinoism, and it changes the facial structure, it changes the melatonin in the skin, it changes the pigmentation in the eyes, it changes the structure of the body, it makes you smaller. Albinos are usually smaller. I mean, you're huge compared to me. I can tell that you're huge. I mean, I work out and I got some pretty good guns, but I'm nowhere, like the Moors. They're powerful, strong, and large. And that's, again, why they selectively breed albinoism, because they want a species that they can dominate. It's hard to dominate somebody that's big, powerful, smart, intelligent, running on 12 genetic strands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Gene, before, Barbally closing, I'm just gonna give you this to the people. I have brown skin, right? So, the whole chattel property game that's been running, identifying, humans as colors, while colors in law means, something that looks real but
Right.
is not real. So
Yep.
I'm just gonna share that here in this form. My skin is brown, but personal experience before coming here, I was literally blue. So just throw it out to the people that don't get caught into the
Yep. And
mind controlling colors. Yeah.
that goes back to something else I haven't mentioned anywhere before. There's a lot of new things I've mentioned today.
Mm-hmm.
There's not one black race. And
Yeah.
it's stupid for us to fight between albinos and ones that aren't albino or less albino, or how much albino are you, or how little are you. This is how stupid the cabal plays us, like we're our male and female, or this or that. It's divide and conquer.
Yeah.
But there's blue black, brown black, and red black. There's actually 3 black races on Earth. There's the Moors, which are blue black, and there's 2 other black races or species on Earth, which are different areas. So Niger and that area is where the Moors originally came from, which is the blue black. The red black actually are in the area originally, way back in Tibet. And the brown black, I'm sorry, and then the red black come from the American continents. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they got more albino and they became more red. And in Nepal and Tibet, they became more albino and they became more brown. And then
Mm-hmm.
they became more yellow as you go towards the east, because the brown got lighter and lighter, becomes yellow, and you get the Asian look. That's in a degree of albinoism of 3 different types. So you have 3 different root races, if you will, of humanity, because we're representing the Holy Trinity. We're all one group that was created in 3 ways by God, that have a degree of albinoism happening, that's been selectively bred in areas to look a certain way. Just like you can take a dog. I mean, originally a dog was a type of wolf that no longer exists on Earth. It doesn't come from any wolf that exists now. It's a much different type of thing. If you try to domesticate a wolf, it's still a wolf. Even 10 generations down, it's still a wolf. It's not going to be like a dog where it's in service to and loves humanity. It's not going to be. It's going to want to
Mm-hmm.
be wild. Its nature is to be wild and be in a pack. It's a pack critter. And, in the wolves that we have, which we call dogs, you can see the ones closest to that still have a lot of that pack instinct, like huskies and German shepherds are pack-like animals. But look at what you get. You get anything from a chihuahua to a mastiff or some of these Great Danes and massive dogs. You can breed from something significantly different if you selectively breed. Like they took amaranth and made corn, which now can't procreate on itself. It has to be hand bred. It can't grow by natural. If all life like us disappeared on Earth, corn would go extinct because it has to be germinated by hand or by machine. And so selective breeding can do a lot of things. And so they're getting us to fight each other by selectively breeding out different species. This is part of the trick they do.
Yeah.
And to get us to fight ourselves so that they can conquer us in everywhere they go. And we look at others as, I'm not as good, or you're not as good, or whatever. And, put all of this kind of racial tension or religious tension or sexual tension, it's all part of their game. This is their game to dumb us down, to divide us, to conquer us, to enslave us. It doesn't matter. We are in the highest level of slavery this planet has ever seen now, by 10 times what it's ever been. And that's probably a minor statement. I'm probably at least a magnitude off. If we were to take what's under the African continent, people wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't say there's that many children on the surface of the earth. There's more children below there than there are above here. The number they've been taking, and that are generations, 11 generations are down there now. You're talking 11 generations of children have been taken, and they have great grandchildren down there. It's massive what they've done to us.
And it makes me think, Gene, of what happened here on this continent in the 90s. Somewhere near Atlanta, there was kidnapping a lot of children, actually. So there's a lot of children actually never. I'm just laughing in the sense that they're not seeing them on the surface for the simple fact that they brought them down. So
that's right.
That's one of the key. And
almost under every major city on Earth, there's a dump.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a minor tunnel complex, I can guarantee you, almost under every prison on Earth. Every psychiatric hospital, every sanitarium, every major place where you have orphan children, any Native American place where you have a large group of natives, not even American, let's go to Russia, where you have a large group of natives or Siberians or any of that, you're going to still find the same thing. And to show you the power of the Moors, the largest monolithic site on Earth, where do you think it is?
I don't know, Gene.
Siberia.
So repeat that again.
Siberia. The brown moors in Siberia, there are monolithic stones that weigh 100 million tons. A wall composed of stones that is 100 million tons. If you research it, just go in to YouTube or DuckDuckGo or any search engine and put in the monolithic structures of Siberia. Also in China, the next biggest are in China. There are stones that make the stuff in anywhere else on Earth look like what's in the pyramid or what's in Lebanon or any of that stuff look tiny. You have stones that are so massive that are partially quarried and stopped, even still sitting in the quarry where they're slightly been put up on chalks and blocks there already. And so, if you look at the Anunnaki, and they're always holding what looks, and Michael Tellinger goes into this, what looks like a cone. It's an anti-gravity device. And they're not telling us. It's very simple device, and it's what they,
Is it that one?
No.
No.
It's the top right, I believe.
Giant megaliths found in Siberia. That one, Gene?
Yes, sir. It's so old, it's been, weathered and warped, and the bottom, if you go down between pin of lava, water, rock, like ice, right below that, you can see how they're very square right there.
Mm-hmm.
You see how they're put together?
Yeah.
They're cracked, yeah, but they are, again, you don't find the seams just like you do not find seams all uniquely lined up,
Yep.
just like you lay brick again.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
So people, just Jane, I just want to specify this because then again, colors they do not define human beings, but Gene only use these tones too, because I know not everyone still are up to speed regarding.
Yeah, I'm just defining things so people understand
Yeah, yeah.
who you really are. Again, is your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And our souls are all created by God. We're all created by the one that created all things. We're all, where we go one, we go all, because we're all part of the one, and the one is all part of us. Like Christ said, if you want to find God, you don't look up in the sky, you look within. Look in your heart.
Exactly. Yep. True. And next time we're gonna, we're gonna adventure actually,
Yep.
Gene, indigenous people, Mars, and the different stellar system and the connection. So, Gene, fabulous information. Then again, I know your time is running.
Yeah.
We have
another show to do pretty soon at the top of the hour.
yeah, but you know what? There's a gentleman that's online, so we'll probably let him, ask one question to you.
Sure, I'm okay with one.
All right. So, Alain, please go ahead. You can unmute and go ahead and ask any question to Gene. Only one, because Gene's has to go though.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Amazing information. Regarding the second Earth that you showed us on the picture, does this have something to do with the cosmic event coming from the central sun, from the Milky Way? And
Yes.
and you said like it's third, fourth, or fifth density. What is the difference between the density and dimension?
Right. So, very good question. Yes, that's being caused by that. As the energy, the sun has already gone up to that density. It's throwing out that energy. That energy, just like it originally, energy becomes mass as it drops velocity and creates more density. And so, density, if you think of the term like steel is much more dense than wood. So dimension is height, width, depth, and then 2 dimensions of time. There's actually 4 physical dimensions of height, width, depth. There's another one that collapses into the quantum singularity, which allows for free energy. And then there's 2 dimensions of time, which is how stealth or time travel is done. You go from T1, you turn 18 degrees, you become radar invisible. You turn 45 degrees, 32 degrees, you become completely invisible. You go 45 degrees, you start moving through space-time. And depending on if you go towards the Coriolis effect where you are or away from it. So if you're going counterclockwise in what we believe is the northern hemisphere, you actually wind up going forward in time, because you're going with the torque of the spin of space-time in that area, like they did in the Philadelphia Project. If you look at the original movie with the kind of pinkish orange clip, you can see the SAGE radars, the field starts rotating counterclockwise, which is the way water goes down the toilet bowl or a sink. And so that's going with the Coriolis effect, which means you're going to go forward in time. And if you're not perfectly lined up to T2, you're going to also displace in location, which means they went from Philadelphia Harbor to Boston Harbor, and they went from 1943 to 1987 on this timeline. On the Morse timeline, they went from 1942 to 1983. So different. And so then if you go the other way, you'll go back in time. And so those are your dimensions, and each density has those dimensions. But as you increase the quantum vibration packet volume per volume, So we have so much density of energy in each area of, say, cubic Planck volume. If you look at each cubic Planck volume, how many packets of quantum energy do you have in that? What you have at third density is, say, 1 times 10 to the, or 1 times 10 to the 95th power grams per centimeter squared at the Planck distance, okay? But at fourth density, it would be 1 times 10 to the 87th. At fifth density, it would be 1 times 10 to the 33rd. And so it depends on how much, in other words, the negative value is getting less. You're getting more and more dense. You're getting more density of packet vibration per cubic centimeter, for example. So the density, the height, width, and depth is still there. Those are dimensions, and people confuse dimension and density. It's not fifth dimension like the old group used to, the fifth dimension. It's fifth density. So as you go up density, and what do you do as you accrue light and you accrue service and you get more compassionate, that's really heavy, right? You become more dense.
Wow, amazing. And this cosmic event, is it supposed to hit the Earth full blast? I don't know, this year, next year, do you know?
A lot of people are saying that it's happening every year since 2012, but there's a primary event, which is you have mini bursts that cause certain people to rapture. And that depends on where you are, in service to self or in service to others. Are you pretty much hopeless in service to others? Then God's going to just, say, go ahead and go to the negative timelines now. There's no sense you're hopeless. There's no sense in giving you more time. It's not going to change anything. But if you're, and you can go to the negative timelines if you're too much service to self now. If you're so much service to self, you might as well go there now. But if you're not there either way, you'll be given to the last event. And the last primary event, when it goes essentially the full eclipse, if you will, the full corona collapse, will be currently sitting. They've delayed it as much as possible. It's been delayed. They are able to actually move that ring slightly, very slightly, which they've done. But the main event now is, there's a limit to how much they can do that, because you're interfering with universal dynamics doing that. And it has to be agreement university from the IFW to do that. The Infinite Alliance of Free Worlds has to agree to that, which means all species everywhere in the multiverse, representation of it at least. And so right now it's set for 2031.
Oh.
December 22nd through December 25th.
Okay, so for the meantime, we're stuck in this area. Huh?
Mm-hmm. And what you'll see for people that are very, very service to others, maybe nothing. It may be so harmonious for you that you wake up and it seems people are way kinder. There's not nasty people around at all anymore. It just seems like, but for some, it may be exactly what I said. Fire falling from the sky, horrific, because you're going to negative Earth. You're staying here. You're staying here like you saw in the movie Galactic, where eventually blights of every kind of crop there is, all plant life dies. Everything dies. By 2045, this rock will be barren. That's why in Montauk, when they were in Camp Hero, when they were trying to go forward in time, they could not go past 2045. Every time they tried, no matter where they tried, they wound up in front of the Lucifer horse in DIA, and there was no life on Earth, and everything looked like it had been hit by a nuclear blast. The only thing standing was that horse. Everything was rubble everywhere they went on Earth. It was just dead. There was no plant life. There was nothing. The air was unbreathable. It was toxic, because you can't go past or to somewhere where there is no vibration of what you are. Your progeny doesn't exist beyond that. There's no literally linked soul energy of you beyond that. You can't go beyond that. Your soul doesn't exist past that date. You can't travel past that date. You can go back as far and forward as far as your soul, allows. But if you don't exist past that date, you can't go past that date. They can't go past that date because they haven't figured this out for some bizarre reason. I guess they don't want to believe it. You know, denial of the facts that they can't go past that because they don't exist past that. But on 4D, 5D, you know, there will be some negative, but not much. And on 5D, none at all. It'll be, you know, very much like what you see in the Bible, the return and all of that. And it'll just seem like a whole lot less people. And for the people who are positive it can't go to 4 and 5D, negative, they'll be lifted by ships. If all the ships that were in stealth were to uncloak, the sky would go dark 24 hours a day. There's so many ships waiting to take people that are good people, mankind and humans both, to Venus, which is completely built. Like if you go to, I'll try to pull it up for next time, the website, the YouTube guy that's on Venus, he thinks he's in Madrid, Spain on Earth in the year 2024. Because
well, that's great news.
He's walking around and nobody's there. And everything's turned on. I mean, he even comes upon a cop car running. And he gets in the car and he drives around. There's no traffic and he's the only guy there. And he's going all over what he thinks is Madrid.
So I can find that on YouTube, right?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay, one last one. The plea that Blessed to Teach and your group made to the
sorry,
courts.
Sorry, Alan.
Okay.
I gotta run. I've got to.
Yeah. Sorry, Alan.
All right. Next
I don't
time
want.
then.
Yeah, I don't want to be rude, but I know Gene is on.
No problem.
I'll get you next time,
Okay.
Alan, or just email me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Taino. God bless, and thank you so much for having me back on your platform. It's always an incredible honor.
So thank you to you, Gene. So I'm gonna put like on the description your email to for any donations. All right. So any donations you would want to give to Gene, I'm gonna put the email right up in the description. So Gene has to bounce. He has to go. So Gene, thank you.
Actually,
we'll plan for our next one.
If you, my email is to contact me, but if people want to give my donation, I can give my PayPal for you, and they can send the PayPal through there.
Excellent. So Gene, thank you. Session 21. Gene, I know you have to go, so you may click the the close button. And thank you for your time, Gene.
Okay, so I'll put in the chat right now my PayPal link for you.
All right. And in the meantime, so all right, so there we have it. I'm gonna take a copy of it right there. Perfect. So I have it here. I'm gonna, share it to the people in the description on YouTube. All right, and we're gonna have another session again with Gene, but now we're gonna tackle, ancient Moors, indigenous people, and the galactic intervention all in one. So Gene is saying thank you guys, God bless you, and thank you to you, Gene. And we'll and we'll send you good vibration, all right, for all your transition with your health status.
Yep, thank you so much, Taino, and thank you for having me back. Always an honor. God bless and bye-bye till next time.
Thank you, Gene.